Before we jump into today's episode, I just wanted to wish all of the reception, front office, client services, client care teams out there a happy Veterinary Receptionist Week. It is from April 23rd to 29th this year, 2023. And so this episode will be coming out during Veterinary Receptionist Week. And I think that's very apt because our guest is, in fact, a veterinary receptionist and a rock star one at that. And like all of you, she is not just a veterinary receptionist. She has a super important job. And I don't like hearing people say, I'm just a receptionist, or I just work at the front desk, I'm just in the phone room, because you are on the front lines. You are an absolutely vital part of each veterinary practice, and every client experience depends on you. And that's a big responsibility, and I don't think we give that the weight that it deserves a lot of the time. So I'm really glad that we have a week now to celebrate you, but you deserve to be celebrated every day. And Kelly Johnson definitely is a fantastic example of what it means to really treat being a receptionist, being a CSR, as a career and not something as a stepping stone on the way to something else, if that's not what serves you. It is a legitimate career in and of itself, and you all do really important and wonderful work. And I just wanted to also say thank you to Erin Davis for introducing us. You said that I would love Kelly, and you were absolutely right. And everybody listening, if they don't already love her, is about to here in a few short minutes. So happy Veterinary Receptionist Week 2023. Please enjoy this interview with Kelly Johnson. Hi, welcome back to Central Line. I'm your host, Katie Berlin, and my guest today is Kelly Johnson. Kelly, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Welcome to Central Line. I'm so excited for this conversation. Actually, we have two conversations they'll be coming to you in parts 1 and 2. But it's because Kelly has so much to say and is such a fun person to talk to that we couldn't fit it in one conversation. So that just gives you a heads up about what kind of person she is. So Kelly, welcome to Central Line. It's really exciting to have you here.
Oh, it's so exciting to be here. Thank you so much.
Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you came to be sitting here?
Oh my goodness. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and my accent every so often will come out. So you upper Great Lakes people will think I sound very normal. But I now live in Boston. I call Boston home. So sometimes the Boston accent comes out. So I grew up in Wisconsin, got a liberal arts degree. I started off as a music major.
Go liberal
Yay,
arts!
liberal arts! I love the liberal arts. I think everyone should taste a little bit of everything that's out there, especially when you're so young and it's hard to know who you want to be when you grow up, because I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, same.
And yeah, I taught for 1 year, and I wish somebody had sat me down and went, are you sure you want to teach? Don't regret the degree, don't regret the experience, but it just wasn't for me. And like most people, I wandered in the wilderness trying to figure out what I was going to do. Decided at one point with some weird epiphany that I was going to go to grad school, after deciding I was never going back to school. So
I think that's how most people get to grad school. Like, not necessarily vet school, but like grad school for sure. It seems like
it's a disease. And once it bites, there's no cure.
Yeah. And it's a beacon in the wilderness somehow. So you're like, I think I'll go there.
Yeah. So I went exploring. I was actually working for an airline at the time. And I had the opportunity to fly all these wonderful places at almost nothing. I paid almost nothing to fly, and decided I'm going to go and check out some grad schools. And I wanted to go to seminary. Thought I was going to be a pastor, ordained pastor. And after exploring a couple places, I went to Boston University, and instantly that feeling, if you've ever had it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm home.
Yeah.
This is it. This is exactly where I need to be. I don't know why. Or experience like, this is my pet. This is my human. This is my familiar. You just know.
Yeah.
And I felt that way about Boston University. So shout out Terriers. And graduated, found along the way, thankfully, people did sit me down and talk to me about that. And the ordained life was not for me. So once again, wandering in the wilderness. And I accidentally stumbled upon veterinary medicine. My first job took a real big chance on me. A woman has a master's degree. Why does she want to do reception work? And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with veterinary medicine, and I feel like, once again, I found my place to be. So that's my wandering for 20 years, finding my way to this space.
That is not the story that most people think of when they think of who's behind the reception desk at a vet clinic. Like it's a very long and windy road. And I love that you found vet med after all that and said, this is my home. And so, Kelly, you're a veterinary receptionist now, and we'll talk more about why you like to use that title. And you're also looking to be a pet chaplain. Is that correct?
So I'm looking to be I'm heading towards board certified chaplain. The first step right now for me is going to be a associate certified chaplain. That's another conversation for another day. But I'm looking.
Part two.
Yeah, I'm working towards being a board certified chaplain. Full stop. And with a couple of other people across the country, we're looking at creating veterinary chaplaincy. There are pet chaplains, and that's actually a registered trademark, so I want to be careful on using that one. I am a pet chaplain. I do have the training from them, but I'm working on being a chaplain within the veterinary industry.
Very cool. Yeah, that's super cool. And we'll touch on that some today, but yeah, we are going to save a little bit of that for conversation part 2, where we'll talk more about grief and many of the things that come along with grief, because grief is complex. But today, the reason that I wanted to talk to you and that I was so excited to meet you is that you are a veterinary receptionist, and in no way are you, and I'm using air quotes here, are you just a receptionist? And so, but, you know, I love that you are so passionate about the veterinary industry, and that you have so many different avenues that you've explored in your life, because I agree with you. I think we should all taste a little bit of everything. It makes us more interesting people, and it makes sure that where we are is where we want to be, which is very important. But before we get any further, I was just going to ask you, what guides you in your life and work?
Trauma comes to everybody, and it's not your fault that trauma fell upon you, but it is your responsibility to do something with it. And my response to the trauma that I've experienced in my life is to learn more about it, how it affects me, how it affects the world around me. And then I try to turn that around and support others. Some days I do it well, some days I don't. It's a constant journey, but understanding that everybody is shouldering some level of weight that I never get to know. Everybody is not just a book, but I only get to see the glossy jacket. I don't even get to read the back. I see the title, I see the picture on the front, and hopefully at some point I get to read a few of the words inside their book. And that I try to use that as my guiding principle, whether it's in the office or doing my grief care work or driving down the Mass Pike.
Definitely driving down the Mass Pike. I've never met drivers like there are in Boston. OMG. Anyway, so it's definitely an exercise in everybody's got stuff when you're driving in Massachusetts. But I love
don't
that
think
guiding
people
light.
In Chicago don't get out of this. I have driven down 94, and you people in Chicago, Love to you all.
Atlanta is also very scary. I just experienced that for the first time. Driving in Atlanta is terrifying. It's a death-defying experience.
Let's just say everybody, you've all got your troubles with driving.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody's got something. I'm from DC, you know. But Boston gets its own kind of award simply because the streets are totally insane and there are all those little roundabouts, and I just don't understand them. Like sometimes if you're looking at a GPS, like while you're driving in Boston, like the GPS looks like it's gone totally crazy. So I don't know how anybody does it. Anyway.
Or it just cuts out.
Yeah. Or it's like, you know what? I just give up. So should you. That's why we have public transportation. Anyway. Well, I love that guiding light because you're right. We've all got stuff. And that informs so much of your work, both as a receptionist and as a grief counselor, and I should say grief specialist, because you really are a specialist in that, and you really are doing such amazing work. And I want to pause on that title of veterinary receptionist because it's funny because in a lot of conversations and in our written materials, I try to avoid using the phrase receptionist. I've sort of trained myself to not use that word and to use CSR, or we at the hospital I was at last, we called them client care specialists or CCSs. And it seems like more of a specific title that encompassed so much more of what that role entails. Why does veterinary receptionist in particular ring true for you?
So I grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and if you watched Who's the Boss, Mona was a wonderful character, and she was her daughter's receptionist. And she always just sat there filing her nails or painting them. And I think some people have that idea of a receptionist, somebody who just pushes the paper, gets things done, and then lives their life in between those moments.
Like bare minimum.
Yes. And when I started kind of looking around and jobs in the medical field, I saw a lot of medical receptionists. And what an elevation to that title. When you're in the medical field, there's a certain level of professionalism that is inherently expected out of that. And so while the jobs I've had do encompass receptionist or CSR, CCA, I have put down veterinary receptionist as my title on my resume. And it's because I am proud of being a medical receptionist in the veterinary field. I know so much more than just how to work on Word or an Excel document or answer the phone. I know about medications, and I know flag words and trigger words that mean I need to ask for more help or ask more questions. There is a professionalism when I claim that I'm a receptionist in the medical field. And I want to bring that elevation to the profession in. Now, that said, the title of whoever sits at your front desk does set a tone for how you as the professional plan to interact with this person and what you expect out of them. So if you want them to really focus on the client care, and that's really the focal point of the job they're doing, there's nothing wrong with that. But be aware that when you're using that title, you're saying it's the client care first. And what does that mean for your staff? And liberal arts, I'm really focused on the words we use. There are nuances to them. And that is also a part of my grief care training, is to be careful of the words I use. So I'm very conscientious about this, and I recognize I probably overthink that. But when you're coming up with the title for the person who sits at the front desk, really think, what is the focal point of their job and how are they interacting with the multitude of people who are in that space, with the other staff, with vendors, with clients? And what does that mean?
That's really interesting, Kelly. I've never heard anyone talk about it like that before. And you're right. I mean, when you go to your doctor's office, the medical receptionists at a doctor's office or at a hospital they know so much. That's a specialty position where it takes a ton of training and a lot of time to get comfortable with all of the terminology and the steps that go into figuring out how to make this experience both good for the client, good for the medical team, and accurate, and so no mistakes are made. And that all starts at that front desk. And it starts on the phone when the person calls ahead, in most cases. And it really is a specialist position. And no matter what you call it, thinking about it, and rather than kind of using a throwaway term because it's just what your neighbor down the road uses or what they used at your last practice.
Or it's the en vogue name to use.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It makes a lot of sense to think about that. And I am also a liberal arts kid, so I've gotten a lot of crap about this in my life, but I definitely believe that words matter. And that's partly why I have the job I have, because my job is to edit a lot and use words and communicate constantly and connect people and connect ideas. And words are so important. And that doesn't, it's not to say that words are always going to make or break the situation, but I think we can all be very thoughtful and intentional about what we name roles and what we call people. So I love that. One thing when we met, I was thinking about how long have you been a veterinary receptionist now?
Going on 6 years.
Okay, 6 years. So that's longer, I think, than the career of the average vet tech. I feel like turnover is about 5 years, or at least that was data that existed a while back, is that the average veterinary technician career lasts about 5 years before they think about doing something else. And so for a veterinary receptionist, I think we probably see even more turnover in that job. Why do you think that is? Name one of 687 reasons why you think that is.
There's so many. Like anything in vet med, there's so many nuances, and it's no one particular thing. And I'll for this one, I really can only speak to my experience. It is a tough job.
Yeah.
Instead of in some days you feel like you're helping everybody out and you are the Google Maps of your office. And some days you feel like the ducks in Duck Hunt. And everybody has got you in their crosshairs.
So true.
Like, you can't please the client, you can't please the doctor, you can't please the technicians or the hospital assistants, and you can't please your medical director, your manager, whoever it may be. You have those days where Mercury went into retrograde when I started this shift. And if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So there are really days where you feel like the duck in Duck Hunt. The pay is really low. And I know that is a common feeling across all segments of veterinary medicine. And I know that's a huge conversation, but reception work is generally considered an entry-level position. You don't have to have any education in veterinary medicine or any medicine. For some people, this is their very first professional job, and they're paid like that. But it's not a living wage. And for the amount of work that you have to do, a living wage should be expected out of that. This is not something a 16-year-old could ever do. I find that, the small working space. Look at the space your reception team has. I know we all joke about technicians can give you advice on the best deodorant to wear because they're always up in each other's armpits. But think about how much they move in and out of that space. Your reception team has 1/3 to 1/4 of the space that the rest of your team has. You have a disagreement with somebody, you work on that pet, and then you move to opposite sides of the treatment area. You have that ability. When I'm working up at reception, I can literally touch the person I'm working with for the entire shift. If somehow an alien came down and made us Siamese twins, we could still do our job. That's rough, especially if there are any conflicts that are happening or it doesn't have to be like conflict. It
Right.
it can just be tension of how to handle a difficult client, and you each have different approaches. You are in such a bubble, and the eyes are always on you. So 1984. Um because you've got the cameras, because you have to, there's medications around, you've got clients who are always seeing you. You can't make facial expressions, you can't run into back, roll your eyes, stomp your feet. I mean, maybe you can and then come back, but you're always on.
Mm-hmm.
um and there's a lack of education and growth opportunities.
Mm.
You become a CSR, and maybe the next elevation is leadership or some sort of supervisor management. Well, not everybody is destined for that. I'm not. I am definitely not management material. I don't want to formally lead people in their positions. I don't want to have that level of authority. I that's just not who I am. Um,
And it's
I,
good. We don't want everybody to want to be managers, right?
no, you don't
There's
want
no
bad
room for
managers.
that many people to be managers.
Well, but there's no room for bad managers.
Right.
Management is hard enough, and if your heart is not in it and you know that you don't have the skill set for it,
Yeah.
don't be in that position.
Yeah.
Just don't. And I would say the last thing is the lack of agency.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been with places or been in positions where they say you're empowered to do this, but the moment you try to do that, why did you do it? That's costing us money. And that dichotomy of you have agency, but don't you dare use it.
Right. You can do it, but not like that.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to empower your staff, be very clear about how they are empowered to do things. One of the places I worked, I love this. If it was really busy, and I mean, it was a smaller place, but if it was really busy and we were backed up, I was allowed to order pizza for people. And rather than people being hangry, now they're eating something. I've cared for them. The staff has a moment to catch up, and that abated a lot. Or I could order somebody a coffee because they'd been there for 12 hours with their sick pet and we're not going to leave their side. Like, that's an empowerment that I can actually care for that client while the rest of the team really cares for their pet. Like, in fact, that's something I do when I have codes or serious cases come in. I'm talking to the client, getting the information, and I will say to them, we're all here for you. They're going to focus on Fluffy. My name is Kelly, and I am here for you. That's my only job right now. Whatever you need, you let them know you need me, and I got you. Like, that's
I love
empowerment.
That. Yeah.
Empower your CSRs. We are powerful creatures.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And that empowerment, just the idea that, that client is trusting the veterinary team with their pet, and they're probably pretty stressed out because you work in emergency right now, right?
Yes.
So things are pretty stressful there. People aren't coming in to have like a ear infection recheck there, as a general rule. And so that stressed out client needs more taken care of than most people, because they're in that anxious, stressed out state. They know it's going to cost a lot of money probably, and they're freaked out about what's going on that they can't see. And to have you be the person that's trusted to say, what can I do for you, for that client? That's a lot of trust, because that, even though we're here to take care of the pets, like as a veterinary profession, the pets don't come alone. And the client is the one who makes the decisions and the one who's going to make that interaction go smoothly or not go smoothly. And for you to take care of the client gives you a lot of control over what the rest of the team's experience is going to be like.
Well, and the team knows exactly who to go to get stuff from the client. Rather than them having to leave the treatment area, they can call up to reception. Hey, is Kelly there? Okay, I need you to go talk to Fluffy's owners. We need to get this information. Can you call their RDVM and get this. Like, there's a point of contact for the front and for the back to allow better communication.
Yeah.
And better use of time.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And the client doesn't feel like they're being shuffled around from person to person or having to tell the same story 3 times. That is super annoying. Been there as the client.
I already talked to somebody about this. Well, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. They're in the middle of taking care of someone else right now. So they've already forgotten you. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can see. So all of that is a lot. I mean, as somebody who worked at a front desk in a vet hospital, a very small vet hospital in LA, I worked at the front desk with one other person, at a time, for a few months before I became an assistant. And this is when I was applying to vet schools. And it was a really hard job. And our boss was kind of a micromanager. She would come and stand over your shoulder and dictate to you what you were supposed to be doing. And I get why, because she had a lot of brand new people who didn't stay and she couldn't really trust them to do it. But she also, because that was the system, we didn't have a lot of training. So we didn't feel like we had agency at all. We had no power. Everything went on a note and the note went back to doctor. And that was the system. And we all called it doctor, just doctor. Have you seen Doctor? It was a choice. Anyway.
I hope you only have one at that point.
I got a lot. We had 2, but the other one had a name. When you said doctor, everybody knew who you were talking about. I learned a lot at that hospital. And, some of it really helpful and useful, and some of it about what maybe we could be doing differently in small hospitals. I'm grateful for all of that experience, but it was a really, really hard job, and it gave me a really good insight into what it's like to work at that front desk and be the sort of face of the hospital, but also not have power to control anything that was going to happen to those clients or those pets. And I can imagine that over time, that would just be enough that people would not want to stay. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot about the experience that we maybe can't fully control, but we can give our veterinary reception teams the ability to grow and flourish in ways in their jobs that maybe we don't always think about. So what do you feel like that looks like? How can we create more opportunities and encourage more CSRs, veterinary receptionists, to grow and develop?
I would steal from the business models of administrative assistant. They come in 3 levels. Administrative assistant 1 is an entry-level position. If you've never had experience, you come in as a level 1. And then usually after about 5 years of experience or so, you've learned enough skill sets to move into a level 2. And then 3 is usually working for more executives, C-suites, and then that's when you move into personal assistant area. I would love to see that utilized, especially your larger corporations, where you have the opportunity to move between hospitals and facilitate various different things. You hire for level 1, and best advice I got, give yourself 6 months to feel like you know what you're doing before you make any judgment about whether or not I should stay. That was one of the best things I learned when I started. Because month 2, as an overachiever and somebody who loves to learn, and I'm not quite getting it, I mean, I would leave in tears.
Yeah.
And I would tell myself, it hasn't been in 6 months. It hasn't been 6 months. And lo and behold, about 6 months, I could start pronouncing cefamoxidine, and it just rolled off the tongue. Butorphanol, I still can. It's still torp, but I'm pretty sure I did not pronounce that correctly.
Nope, that was right.
Oh, yeah! 6 years and I got it. But I needed 6 months to really feel like I knew what was happening. And if we give people the opportunity to make lateral moves in this, your pay is not just dependent upon how many years you've been here and cost of living increase, but that you have gained knowledge and you have worked towards this. I could be a level 2 veterinary receptionist and not take on management training responsibilities. Or I love to train new receptionists. Love it. It's fun. I show them my techniques and they learn from others. So when you're a level 2, you can have someone sit next to you, and level 1s know that you're a good person to come to because you have that experience and education.
And you're not going to yell at them.
Yes, because you've been around for a while.
Yeah.
You've lived it.
Like, not everybody likes to train and teach.
No.
So that's a very important thing for a level 1 to know.
Yeah.
Is
or
who they can go to and not risk their mental health at that moment.
Well, the other thing is, when I worked for a very large corporation, I was able to go and work at other hospitals within the network. So level 1, your job is to be in your home hospital, learn the basic skills. You hit level 2, well, now I can start traveling to the other hospitals. And that's where I fell in love with ER. I mean, that's how it all started trickling in. And then you can have your level 3s, and that's when, if people want to be in supervisory or management roles, you start pulling from there, but you have a chance to glean. And again, it's that lateral move. So many other companies and positions have lateral moves. And unfortunately, with your CSRs, reception team, there's no lateral move. The only lateral move you can really make is to take a new position as a hospital assistant. So that's something I would definitely borrow. 2, stop talking about how hard our jobs are. We know.
Yeah.
If you went into work every day and somebody said, I could never do your job, it's so hard, you have the hardest job in the hospital, why would you stay?
Well, especially if you're not being compensated particularly well. Like, I would say that it's arguable whether that happens with all the roles, because at some point somebody says that, to you or about you.
I hear it so much from other people I work with, and
I think people think they're helping when they say that. They're trying to give you recognition, but I could see why that would wear on you.
It does. Well, if I told you every day how hard it must be to be a brunette, and when the beauty standard is being a blonde.
Yeah.
At some point, would you consider being a blonde? I mean, this is weird because I just got these highlights in. Bad example, isn't it?
No, I see what you mean, though. It's like, maybe stop drumming into me that it's hard.
I mean, my job has beautiful, fulfilling moments when I am part of helping someone transition their pet and honor their pet into the next thing of existence after this plane of existence, and I help them memorialize that, to help them pick out the urn or comfort them that, yes, as much as the medical team has said yes, I'm coming in as representative of the average person, saying yes, it's an okay thing to do. Or I love when I can walk around with snacks and beverages and, would you like something to eat or drink? I mean, yes, it's the flight attendant moment of the hospital, but there are real moments of joy and connection when you learn how to pronounce these medications, when you answer a phone call and you are able to de-escalate. There are real moments of joy. So I would turn this back to the rest of the team. What do you think is the joy of being part of your reception team? Because if you can't answer that, how will they find it? So stop telling us our job is hard. We know that. Help us find the joy, because we know the joy that you have. You're hands-on making pets feel better. What a joy. Help us find our joy too.
I love that so much. No one's ever said that I've heard.
There's real joy in my job, and that's what keeps me going. And then lean into our skill sets. We're joking about the liberal arts thing, but I have worked with some people who have amazing backgrounds. I worked with a woman who is an undertaker. Well, she studied to be an undertaker. I work with a woman who used to be a professional wrestler when she was younger. Women who, and this is mostly women, but have psychology degrees and have studied art, or they love to rock climb. There's so many skill sets because most of us did not intend to end up in veterinary medicine. We didn't study animal science with the intention of being here. We generally accidentally fell into it. And maybe they want to take care of things like, do you have somebody who studied English? Have them work on your social media or create a quarterly newsletter to go out to your clients about what's happening in the hospital and who are the members of your team, and lift that up, or creating new patient packets. I used to do that and I loved it. It just putting all the little goodies together. Someone like me who loves to take care of the aftercare and be responsible for making sure that we have the up-to-date information from our crematorium, or they're following up to make sure that people know the ashes have come back or other memorial items have come back, and are very sensitive to that phone call, because I mean, it's a sensitive phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Even helping with making bandages and flushes. Like, how we want to utilize our skill sets, organizational skill. Oh my gosh, so many organizational people in your reception team.
Yes.
We want to be utilized to the fullness of our personhood, not to maximize the output per hour that we're there, but see me as a person,
Mm-hmm.
and who I am and what I love, and then help me utilize that. You've got so many skilled people in your CSR team and your veterinary team.
If you're a fan of Central Line, there's a good chance you're a super fan of VetMed. Well, I've got big news. AhaCon, the ultimate event for veterinary superfans, is coming to San Diego, the home of the con, this September. Level up your skills, knowledge, and connection with more medical and scientific tracks, a killer keynote, and interactive learning experiences for the entire veterinary team. Early bird registration is open now. Visit aha.org/ahacon. That's aha.org/AAHACON to learn more and save your spot. That's amazing. And as you're talking, I'm picturing all of the people that I've met on CSR teams who are multi-talented and who had skills that sort of came out. Like, we had somebody who was really good at illustrating and could do like cartoons, and we had somebody who was a talented photographer and she's really interested in film. We actually had somebody who was going to go to school to be an undertaker in the CSR team at my last hospital. And I think a lot of times veterinary receptionists who have outside interests, or who have aspirations to do something else, are sort of seen as like temporary. And it's like, well, they're space fillers until they go off to school or whatever. And I wonder how many times we actually ask them, like, if you could stay and use some of those skills or grow some of those skills and use them for our hospital, for veterinary medicine, would you? Because we, at least many practices, will happily pay like a marketing company to run their website, and they'll put out like a stock newsletter. There'll be somebody at the marketing company who's like writing a newsletter for the clinic and sending it out. And it's very impersonal a lot of times. And I wonder what would happen if you took that English major / aspiring creative writer on your team and said, hey, once a month, would you do this? Because it would be so personal. And there would be photos of your team, and they might not be stock photo quality, but they'd be of your team.
Mm-hmm.
And those personal connections to your practice are worth so much more than a perfectly polished newsletter. It's just, it takes somebody to coordinate these things. And I know people are thinking like, yeah, but I just would wish somebody would just do this for me. But give them the chance to do it for you. And
give
pay them the money that you would pay
like
that marketing company to do it. Yeah.
To just go into another room and like 6 hours.
Yeah.
6 hours a month, or even a quarter, to go off and fulfill their passion in your workplace.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah. You said something when we were talking before we recorded. I wrote it down because you. So for people listening / watching, Kelly does this thing where she like drops these truth nuggets that are like perfectly put. That you're just like, why didn't anybody ever say that to me before?
I'm just like a bunny hopping around dropping nuggets.
Yes, exactly. Sort of.
I mean, they're happy little nuggets.
They're happy little nuggets. Yeah, I mean, they're necessary for life. So, but you said this one thing because it was sort of related to, it made me think of it because you had said something just now where you're like, stop telling us our jobs are hard, help us find the joy. That's a nugget for sure. I'm going to take that with me. I always thought that it was helpful to show that you knew how hard, your reception team had it. But also, like, if that's all you talk about and you don't talk about the beautiful parts, of course, that is going to seem like, yeah, my job really sucks. Like, why would I keep doing this? That was a good face. Exactly right. And you said something else when we talked earlier. You said, when we do our job right, everybody else looks better. And that made me think of just what you were saying about how if you're a client care specialist or a client services specialist, then it is so client focused. But the fact is that as a veterinary receptionist, you also have a connection to the entire team that nobody else has. You're the conduit between the client and the rest of the team. And you have the power to make the rest of the team look like we have our stuff together or look like we absolutely have no idea what we're doing. That is a very important job. And like that to me is what I could see motivating me on a daily basis, especially if clients weren't being that nice to me. Because that on the flip side of that coin, you can always be serving the team as a whole by doing that. How much do you think about that during your daily life? Like, is that a motivator for you?
Wow. I think it just hangs around in the haze of the background.
Mm-hmm. It's always there.
Think about the last flight you took. And like how much did your flight attendant contribute to that? Now, what was your flight attendant's name? Who was the one who came up and down the aisle and offered you the beverage? They wore a name tag. Your CSRs have to work 3 times harder to be remembered. Even if we're sitting in front of them the entire time, the people they remember are the technician and the doctor because they were the ones who were directly working on the pet.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have a bad experience, it usually will, part of the bad experience will be related to your reception team and how they interacted with them. But when we're doing it right, I don't often have people remember my name. I'll sometimes get responses back of that lady up at reception on that day. She was fabulous. They don't remember my name. And you know what? That's okay. But I see how much that elevated the experience. They got me right back to, Fluffy right back. And then I met with this doctor and this tech and this assistant. It's how I handled it on the phone. And I'm kind of dancing around this, but it's okay that they don't remember me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see how much they appreciated the team, I'm part of that team.
Yes.
Even if I am not singled out, because I know I'm going to have to work way harder to do that. And even if I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it, they may not remember me, but they remember how I made them felt.
Yes.
That's enough.
And I think in emergency, it's probably more common than we think that clients don't remember the names of anybody on the team. Because, like, if you're not wearing a name tag especially, but, like, I took my dog into emergency a few weeks ago for neck pain, and I had a fantastic experience. I traveled half an hour to go to this ER, even though there are ones closer to me, because I had a friend recommend it, and they were amazing. Shout out to Evolution in Denver, in Lakewood.
Woo!
And the doctor who was working that day, I think she may have been a relief doctor because the staff didn't know her very well. She was wearing scrubs and she didn't have a name tag on. And I remember having to ask what her name was when I was checking out, just because she took such good care of us. And I don't remember it. I was stressed out that entire time. I was so worried about my dog 'cause he's 100 years old, and every time he has something go wrong, I think it's like the last thing. I don't, but I remember feeling taken care of. And they had a technician who was like a Chihuahua whisperer, and she carried him around, and I knew he was going to be in good hands, even though I couldn't be with him the whole time.
Also a massive skill set that is completely underrated is
absolutely.
Chihuahua whisperer.
Yes, absolutely. There's always one, and you just hope that they're on that day when you have to come in on emergency with your mean Chihuahua, because he is very good at it, very good at it. And, especially if he needed handling of any kind, but I don't remember her name either. And I wish I did, but the respect and the gratitude that I have for them is undiminished, whether or not I know their names. And if we have to go back and I see them again, I will remember, because it'll be more than once. But most likely I won't ever see them again. And I'm super grateful to them. And you're right. It is about the feeling that comes with that visit that client goes home with. I have no idea what went on in that treatment area because it wasn't an open hospital. I didn't see it. But I left feeling like I trusted that team because of the way I was treated and the way that I saw them treating him in front of me. And you can't pay enough money for that experience, and the front office team is a huge, huge part of that. So okay.
I remove a lot of makeup from my scrubs for people crying on me.
Yeah. That's why CSRs need a scrub allowance, everyone.
Yes. And embroider their names on their scrubs.
Yeah, make it special.
It says, I think they're going to stay. I'm going to put the money into personalizing this because I believe they're going to stay.
I love that.
I mean, when you go to restaurants or hotels, they're printing out those labels and slapping it on a generic name badge.
Sometimes it's like the tape over the name. Oh my
gosh, you can see it. It's so obvious. These people are transient. Yeah. They're here for a season and then they're gone. But when I was able to get my name embroidered on my scrub, I felt like I belonged. Like they expected me to stay. So if your budget can allow for it, or if you can get, if somebody has a sewing machine that does this, embroider your team's name on scrubs. Truly, you are going to make them feel like they belong.
I love that so much. Yeah. It's a very small expense for a very big gesture.
And I love that now I get to put my credentials on. So, I mean, I'm not a CVT or any letter VT, but I get to put my master's credential on there. And I love that I am honored for the education I have. And if other people go and get compassion fatigue certification, they can add that to the end. Show the training that your entire team has.
Yeah, fear-free certification.
We are
Stick that
all
on there.
Professionals. We are working in a professional industry. It doesn't take much to allow people to do that. And it's a recognition, again, of their personhood and the things that they've gone out to do.
Love that.
Please do it. Please do that.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so that's a really good segue into the last real question I was going to ask you, because that is a concrete thing that people can do tomorrow to make their front office team feel just as valued as their technician team, because that idea of okay, you're part of the team now, not like you're a warm body in this rolling chair next to this other warm body.
Yes, and get us rolling chairs, please.
Yeah,
please.
But be careful when you sit in the rolling chairs, because I remember some very near-death experiences, when the chairs are just too rolly on those slippery floors. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
Rebecca, if you're watching, I'm so sorry about that chair experience. I'm so sorry.
I used to work, when I started working from home, I was working for Clinician's Brief, and I was working from home for the first time, and I spent a lot of time at my desk, and I wasn't used to it. And so I got like one of those balls, like a fitness ball to sit on, because somebody was like, oh, this way you won't get so fatigued. Your like hip flexors like it. Yeah, I fell off that ball so many times. Like one time it just, for some reason, the floor in my den was like a little sloped like this. And so every time I wasn't sitting on it, it would roll away from me. And I would think it was there, and it was not there. This is why they make those chairs with the like bouncy ball on. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sympathy. Especially if clients are looking at you when it happens. Anyway.
Sometimes you need that laugh.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it could definitely break the tension. I could see that.
There's not much to laugh about at the ER, so we grab onto everything.
Yeah, as long as you don't then need the ER afterwards.
Yeah, fair.
But so the question that I was going to ask you is about taking from, because I really believe that, like, you're right, we don't need bad managers. There are some bad managers out there. For the most part, I think management and leaders in vet practices have good intent. And if they're listening to this, they definitely have good intent. They want to help. They want to make their team feel valued. But taking that step, bridging the gap from good intent to effective execution is hard. It takes time. Sometimes it takes resources. Sometimes it takes permission from somebody who wasn't listening to this episode or doesn't see things the same way. So, like, can you, aside from the scrubs, which is a fantastic tip, and that could be it. We could be done now. But if you have any other suggestions or tips for like ways that things that management could do to bridge that gap, to say like, our intent has always been here, but now we really want to show you.
Ooh, your reception team is really good for helping you bridge that gap. If you find that you just don't have the time to get it done, maybe your reception team can help, whether it's putting up fun festive decorations and just making the place feel a little more homey, or taking over ordering snacks for the reception area. My dog's day camp, because of course my dogs go to day camp, I love this. On their social media, they have camper of the week. And I hear about all these other dogs, and now I get to see pictures of them, and I get a little blurb about who they are. And I love this. So you don't need to put it out on social media. Not everybody is comfortable with that, but do some sort of internal thing where your employee of the month is not necessarily somebody who was the best employee of the month, because honestly, that's always going to be like your technician or your doctor.
That's not fair, is it?
No, but just pick a month, or that they're the only one that has a birthday that month, and recognize them, or every other week or once a week, depending on how big your team is, and do a little internal blurb about who are the people in your neighborhood and what do they
Thanks
like?
for that earworm.
Yeah. Who are the people in your hospital?
All you 70s and 80s babies out there.
Your like heart just got warmed.
Yeah. Everyone else is like, what?
Who? What? Elmo. But have them get to know each other in this way. And what is it you do outside of work? I mean, maybe you're a diehard gamer and somebody else is, they're a closeted Dungeons and Dragons person. And now you've got something in common to talk about. Have people get to know each other and facilitate more authentic personal communication that is all by itself a team builder that you are not responsible for. It just offering the opportunity for people to better get to know each other is something that you can make a commitment to, and then have somebody else on the team who loves doing communications or something like that take over. Going back to the agency thing, really be clear with your team about when things come up. that's a great opportunity to talk about what is your agency in this. And then this is really going to go for managers. Write that stuff down. If you've got a document file or a Google file, write down, I gave my staff permission to. Because if they ever have to push back on you, you can go, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
Well, revisit time. Own, yes, I said it. Oops, now we need to revisit. But
I like
yeah.
that. Clear is kind, right?
Yes, I mean, people have best intentions.
Mm-hmm.
We said that before. People have best intentions. They want to do things right. We're human and we make mistakes.
Yeah. Kelly, I could talk to you all day. Luckily, we will have another episode coming up. So we'll get to talk some more. But for now, I think that's a good place to leave it. I love all of your advice and your passion for the industry that you never meant to end up in and now clearly are making a home in.
Can I just say a shout out for a couple of CEs?
Do it.
Your reception team really doesn't get to take advantage of a lot of the CEs out there. While I'm interested in DCM, how am I ever going to use that? I'm not going to be able to talk to a client about that. I'm really going to be doing it for my own dogs. But I would love to see some CE out there, especially since your hospital assistants, your reception team are brand new. Let's do CE on medical terminology and abbreviations. I need to know that SX means surgery and TX means treatment, or Q means how frequently. I need to know that methadone really cannot be abbreviated.
Yes, and there are certain things you should never write in the record.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do some basic terminology CE, like CE 090, not even CE 100, but let's start with that. What are flags that you need to ask more questions or get a professional on the phone, like get a doctor or a lead technician? My cat's having difficulty breathing. Is it open mouth breathing? Like, you're brand new. You don't know to ask that question.
Yeah.
Or my dog's a little lethargic. What do you mean by lethargic? Because that's been since the pandemic and curbside, that's been a trigger word that so many people use.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, some of them just, that's what they use. Some of them think that that's going to get them to the front of the line.
Yeah.
What do you mean by lethargic? But training your staff or CEs on how to recognize common client comments that need more. DEI training. Your reception team, snap, snap, snap. Your reception team is literally encountering everyone. We need to know anti-Semitic training, anti-LGBTQ discrimination training, anti-racism training, and to confront your own bias.
Mm-hmm.
I confronted a lot of that in my grad school. I'm still confronting that on a daily basis and having to go, check yourself. Where's your privilege? What are you doing right now?
So
DEI
important.
training. I mean, we've seen a lot of this happen, unfortunately, to a number of our veterinarians recently. And my shout out to those of you who have turned it around as a training opportunity for the rest of us with love and compassion. But your reception team is full on facing it with the general public. We need to have more DEI CE and de-escalation training. We don't need to be SWAT trained, but
hopefully the de-escalation training will keep you from needing to be SWAT trained.
Exactly. Like, we're going to be the front line of an angry client.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What can we do to bring that down, to ensure people, I'm not the person to take care of this, but I'm going to make sure you're handed off to the person who can. How do we prevent people from screaming in our lobbies, I never should have come here, I should have gone to X hospital instead? De-escalation training. Absolutely. There are CEs we could be doing with the whole team, but reception specifically. And I really hope somebody out there starts providing reception focused training that the rest of the team can utilize.
I love all those ideas. And of course, as a content creator and in a position at AHA to make suggestions about stuff like this, I am making a note of that. And when we get the transcript for this episode, I'm going to be taking a lot of notes and sending them to the rest of our team, because I think those are all fantastic ideas. And it reminds me, we have this one page in our pain management guidelines toolkit, which you can find online at the pain management guidelines site. It's a free download, and it's a toolkit that contains resources for the whole team. And one of the pages is I think there's 2 pages that are a client care corner, and it's got all these speech bubbles of like things that clients say that might actually mean their pet's in pain, but none of them are saying my pet is in pain, and we need like a translation like that for so many other situations. Like you said, what are the follow-up questions to ask? What is the thing that instantly in your brain is like the red light goes on and you have to go to the big red phone, versus like take a note. And that seems like such an obvious thing, and yet I haven't seen that.
No, it's kind of an instinct thing for doing it throughout the years. Because I've been in the field almost 6 years, and I had a case recently. We were full, and we were asking people to kind of stay in their cars because the weather was awful, until we could triage. And I went to the team. I said, hey, something about this phone call seems wrong. The owner's tone of voice is off, and they're not using any of the flag trigger words, but it's enough stuff together. Like, can someone just go put eyes on this pet and make sure it's okay to wait for a full triage? And turns out we caught it just before it was going to become a critical situation. Like, the pet really needed to be seen. It wasn't critical, but if we had waited until we could triage, it really could have become critical.
Yeah.
And knowing that by experience may have saved that pet's life.
Yeah.
I needed to be the advocate for that patient. And I just love to see more of it. There are things that we can do beyond instinct. There's just certain words that people use, or while it may vary from region to region, there are certain tones of voice that this is not right.
Yeah.
We've actually used the term, it's an owner code.
Ah.
Like, the pet is stable, but the owner is not.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just, like, it's a cue to the team. We don't need to bring out the crash cart, but we do need to address this so the owner doesn't escalate. Again, de-escalation training.
Yeah.
Like, if you can someone can come out, put eyes on the pet, you are okay to wait until we can do a full triage. This is a mini triage, like this is a mini mani-pedi.
Right.
It takes so much stress out of the experience, and then we can take over from that point. How can I help you? I'm here for you. What else can I do for you? The team said we're okay, but if anything changes, I know who to call.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes that's a good point, that sometimes de-escalation is just taking a minute to let the client know they're heard. It doesn't even have to be like a special technique. It's just not saying, hey, you have to wait your turn. It's saying, okay, this client is really upset. It's going to take me 2 minutes to decide whether they're right, or they just need to, they need to be reassured in this moment. And that's something that I know I've been guilty of not taking the time to do, because I've been indignant that clients would think that their situation was more important than what I was working on. Not good. It's not like the suffering Olympics. Like, if they're that upset, they're suffering, whether or not the pet is actually critical.
Yeah, and I love when we can just say, look, your pet is stable enough to wait a little while. We've got a patient who needs us right now. That patient cannot wait. But I see you. I see your pet. We're going to be okay if you wait 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, because now I know when you leave for another pet, that pet can't wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And your CSRs can take over and say, what is, what is urgent versus critical?
Mm-hmm.
Because people think, well, my pet's having an emergency. It's an ear infection. Literally, I've had people say that this is an emergency. He has an ear infection. Okay, well, they're with a critical case right now. What does critical mean? It means the patient's not breathing or doesn't have a heartbeat. Oh. We can do that. We can go to that chart with the colors and say, this is what it is. They've put your pet as like stage green.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
It's a good thing to be stage green.
So medically, this is amazing.
Yes.
Time-wise, this is awful.
Yes.
Do you want to order...
Great news.
Do you want to order Grubhub?
Yeah.
Let me give you the address. Let me give you the tips on how to put it in. They can deliver it to the front desk, and I'll bring it right to you.
Oh my gosh, I am so sad that they did not have Grubhub when I was in vet school. Ugh. Anyway. Well, Kelly... Thank you. Thank you so much for all of this. And I want to make sure that people can find you because you are, as are all of our veterinary reception team members, you are unique and you're an onion, meaning you have many layers.
And I'll make you cry.
And you'll make us cry. Yeah. Stay tuned for the next episode with Kelly Johnson. But where can listeners find you?
Oh, I am all over the place. So I do have a website. It's veterinarychaplaincy.com, but I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Kelly Drescher Johnson. And I'm on Facebook. My veterinary chaplaincy has a page on Facebook. I think I have an Instagram. I forgot.
We'll put all the links in the show notes that we can find.
I'm everywhere. I'm like Visa. I'm everywhere you want to be.
And with Grubhub and a kind word.
And I have a DoorDash account too if you want to send me something.
Kelly, thank you so much. And we'll be talking to you again soon about grief.
Yes.
And even though it's going to be about grief, I have a feeling we'll be doing plenty of giggling on that episode too. And I love that about you. Kelly, thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for listening. We'll catch you next time on Central Line.
Thank you.